the cloud, and we're recording the Zoom conversation as well, and we're live. And this week you're seeing Richard, as opposed to having to look at my left kit, which was last week's. So talking of last week as a start, as I say, tonight is Friday the 19th of June. Hello everybody that's tuned in to see us. Tonight's Friday the 19th of June. I keep having to tell myself. I want to start by thanking Alan Jardine for last week's live interview. It was absolutely superb. I had an absolute ball. Alan was just great crack to talk to. Everybody I've been speaking to has really enjoyed last week's as well. So Alan, if you're watching, thank you very much. Out of last week's, I have to apologise. I was pulled up after the interview by a friend of mine who took offence at me calling an escort a puddle hopper. So apologies to those with escorts for calling them a puddle hopper. And as revenge and punishment, he offered to take me a running one to show me that it's not a puddle hopper. So if anybody knows where you can get a waterproof seat cover that will go over a bucket seat, and where you can get massively large Pampers that's going to fit me, let me know and I might just take a run. The last time him and I were together in an escort, the CCTV camera footage was put onto a DVD and shown to the manager of the establishment, who apparently was heard to say, I wish he'd taken me a run. I'm not going to say who it was, but those of me who know me well enough will know who that was, where that was, and when. So if you're watching, hiya. Just watching through Facebook this week, I've seen that there's a few people out there who are working at their cars. It's great to see. I see Chris Rogan has been working at the escort. So Chris, not sure if it was Instagram or Facebook, probably Instagram, that I saw the pictures on. Chris, if you're watching, get more photos up. It's great to see progress. Anybody else that's working at cars, get your photos up, spread the news, show everybody what's happening. It's great to see amongst all the competitors that are working and fine-tuning and tweaking and stuff. Great to see. I saw an interesting one, Richard. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I saw a really interesting one there, which I can't wait to see. You know Jeff Kidd?
Uh-huh.
Well, Big Jeff had a thing on Facebook a few weeks ago of him with a smart car in the garage. And during the week, Gary had more pictures up of what looked like the back of the smart car with everything cut off it. So I'm not sure if he's making himself another speed creation, if he's making himself a shopping basket, because the size of smart compared to the Jeff, you know, he could carry it.
Yeah.
Or whether it's a new portable carrier for his carry-out pints when the pub's open next week. Jeff, please let us know. Share the pictures. I see Robbie Davison's involved in the project as well, so chances are it will be a bit of crack in their garage when they're working at that. Be interesting to see what that is. Again, I'm promoting my merchandise. You all can see it. Oh, you can't, Richard's here. I'm wearing the merchandise this week. I forgot the new format that you can't see the merchandise. Don't forget, Sprint Championship merchandise is available Blackwater Graphics for anybody who wants to buy it. It'd be great to see people wearing it when we recommence again. Tonight, moving on to tonight, this is an interview I've been looking forward to doing. This man is a man who I used to hear every morning when I was eating my breakfast and on my way to school. Those of you from back then will remember as well, Richard, when he was in Downtown. And I used to love listening to him on the radio, him and Ivan, because the crack was mighty. And you just never knew what was coming next. And I suspect it's going to be the same tonight. So I'm going to hand across and ask Richard to introduce himself, please.
Well, hello, I'm me, and all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure what to expect either, so hopefully we'll reach the other end intact.
Happy days. Well, we're going to start with the start. As usual, I have the normal random questions. I've tweaked them somewhat slightly for Richard tonight. So I'm going to start with the first one and say, Richard, what got you involved in motorsport in the first place?
My dad. It's often the way. I was at my first motor race at the age of 4. No, I wasn't actually competing then, which was the Wakefield Trophy at the Curragh in 1950. So you mathematicians can work out what the next birthday is. And I was sat up beside my granny in the grandstand watching this. And the one thing I remember is that Roy Salvadori had a Maserati. It all sounded really exotic, very Italian. Well, the Maserati was. He actually wasn't, but he was called Salvadori. Went up the street, got run into by somebody and it all went on fire. I remember the big column of smoke sort of heading skywards and everybody going, oh dear. But Roy wasn't hurt at all, but the Maserati was a bit singed afterwards. But that was my first motor racing memory, and I was going to say I've never looked back, but I look back now a lot, but then old fellas do. I saw Sterling Moss race at the Curragh. I was at the Dundrod TTs, well, most of them, and the Ulster Trophy and things like that as a small boy. And there was no way I was going to be interested in anything else after a grounding like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You start young, it seems to stick with you, doesn't it?
It does a bit.
Well, Richard, what is your current involvement in motorsports nowadays?
Yes, where do we start? Well, I'm sort of operations manager of Kirkeston for my sins, and I'm there on a daily basis, usually, keeping an eye on what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm also secretary of the 500 Club and sort of put the contents of races and things together. And that takes up a wee bit of time.
You, the way you say that, put contents of races together, you don't really paint the full picture there, because there's an awful lot of work involved, and people don't appreciate just how much work you actually do in the background.
Well, it's not just me. I mean, there is a whole bunch of us, and I have to pay tribute to Wendy, my better half, because she does the secretary's job on race days and keeps my head pointing in the right direction, which is quite a necessary task sometimes. But, you know, we muddle through, I think is probably the way to put it. And it's fun. We wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't fun.
Well, that's the main thing. As long as you're enjoying it, that is the main thing. I just want to add as well that with your involvement there at 500 Club and at Ferguson, you're also one of the members of the Speed Committee, which looks after both the Northern Ireland Sprint Championship and the Northern Ireland Hill Climb Championship. And since I have taken over the role of coordinator, Richard, you've been like my agony aunt. You've had, I dread to think how many hundred phone calls.
If you look carefully at my shoulder here, it's still quite soggy, but don't worry.
And how many thousand simple and stupid questions that I ask you in order to try and keep things going right. So you're a real source of information and help to me too. And therefore, to making the Northern Ireland Sprint Championship the success that it undoubtedly is at the minute as well. So you have a big involvement in that too. And I'd like to thank you for all your help now, whilst I have you, and on behalf of everybody else for all the help you do, because you really do keep me on the straight and narrow. You know what I'm like. I go on a tangent miles away. You keep things right.
Well, you know, it's certainly true that being a championship coordinator can be a thankless task, because all the opinions get fired at you, whether they're good ones or bad ones. I did a year or two as sprint coordinator many, many moons ago, and it was quite a relief when it stopped.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm still in the honeymoon period, but we'll keep up and see how we get on. But again, thanks for all your help with that.
No worries.
Coming back to it now, I'm going to ask you first of all, what was your first competition? I think, Richard, just hold fire. I think the live feed has just dropped. I'm not sure what has happened. So just bear with me 1 second. The live feed would appear to have dropped. My iPad has gone black. Yep, it has dropped the live feed. I haven't moved. And now Joanne's coming in to tell me I can hear her coming up the hall. Yep, I don't know what has happened. I'm just waiting on the live feed. Oh, great. Hold on now, what happens now? Maybe the iPad set up and all. Everything was going a treat. The joys of technology. I'll close it and reload again. There's a lot of people actually watching on the live feed. Why won't this load at all? Right, looks like we're cooking on gas. Sprint Championship. See me on technology? I don't know what happened there. Right, something, come on. Publish. This is now started to give me grief. If it doesn't work this time, we'll revert to the phone. So just bear with me. Sorry about that. I wasn't expecting that to happen. It just went black. So Sprint Championship, publish, live, start my video. We're live. Hello, folks. Not quite sure what happened there. The iPad lay down. It's been a long week for the iPad. It's had a lot of work. It must have been feeling tired. Not sure what happened. I am going to turn this around here and set us back up again with Richard. So just bear with me one wee sec. I get this set back up again. The position and stuff mightn't be great. My fingers over the button, which doesn't help. Right, it's great, bloody marvelous. I can get it setting up. Right, I'll just have to hold it, something similar to this here, until I can get it better lined up. Sorry, for everybody was listening, sorry, we broke up midway through there, some sort of technical glitch. I'm not sure what happened. I'm just trying to get the phone set up to hold it better here. So, sorry, Richard, where were we? I was at, yes, what was your first competition car you had, Richard?
The first car I competed in, which is slightly different, was a 998 Mini Cooper, which was my road car. And I did a sprint at Castle Coombe, as I was living in that part of England at the time. And for a while, I sort of drove whatever I had as a roadie, and then bit the bullet and wanted a real racing car and bought a Lotus 18 because it looked, in fact, it was the same as Jim Clark's Formula Junior from sort of 5 years earlier. The only difference being, of course, that his went fast and mine didn't. But we did a few hill climbs and things with it, and that was the bug well bitten at that stage.
Yeah. I've just got a note to say our sound is low. I'm not sure what has happened there. Flaming phone. So we'll try that. We should be. So, yes, you're the Jim Clark Lotus 18. Now, I asked you one of the questions. As everybody knows, I send the driver across the questions in advance. I'll plug the microphone in, I'll help you. Right, that should hopefully cure the sound a bit better now. Very embarrassing, I'm sorry about this. That should hopefully cure the sound a lot better now. Sorry, the next question I'm going to ask you was, over the years, what competition cars did you drive in competition? Now, I know you sent me a list through this earlier on, and it was absolutely fascinating.
Well, yes, I did this afternoon just in an idle moment, and we, I think, stopped at about 60 of various kinds. Not all mine, I would hasten to add, but very few of them are mine. But people were kind enough for various reasons to let me drive their cars over the years. So we have an array ranging from a Barclay B95.
Okay.
What is that? I can hear you say. A 325cc motorbike engine, tiny wee fiberglass sports car, which we did a sprint at Kirkiston in it. It belonged to the late Norman Williams. And at its fastest point was actually in the middle of Colonial 1. It was doing 55 miles an hour. It was actually slower on the straight because it was slightly uphill. So it took a while to get round, but that was fun. That at one end, and a Reliant Sabre 6 was different as well. To various Formula cars and things, and Formula Fords, 2000s, Formula Renault. There's a whole raft of them, really. I'm not going to bore you with the details because they are quite boring.
Am I right in saying I saw a Tyrrell on that list?
Cars that I never competed in a Tyrrell, but I certainly did a track test on Richard Peacock's Eddie Cheever Tyrrell 011. That's a sort of 1981 DFV powered car, which would be very high on my list of wonderful things I've sat in over the years.
Well, that was what I was going to say. That was going to be my next question, which you've quite aptly jumped forward to, was what was your favourite competition car that you've ever driven?
That would be one of them. I also got a chance to demonstrate the Ford Museum's GT40, And that was, I have to say, it wasn't the most wonderful thing to drive, but just to sit in it and make it go and think I am driving a GT40, which is something I lusted after for years and years and years. That was special.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned GT40, have you ever been to the Shelby Museum in Vegas?
No, no.
Well, when we were across in January there, we went to it, and it is well worth a visit, Richard. Really is. If you ever get the chance to go, or anybody out there watching who is a Shelby fan or a Cobra fan or a GT40 fan, you just must go to the Shelby Museum. Between you and me, and don't tell Joanne, that would be a good reason to go back to Vegas, just to go to the museum. But don't tell Joanne that.
All right. Well, I'll say that my favorite museum, since we're on favorite museums,
Yeah.
Would be the Collier collection. Pardon me, in Naples, in Florida.
Right.
Where I was lucky enough to get a sort of private tour because it's only open to parties by appointment. But many, many years ago, I had a Dinky Toys Cunningham C5R, which was very exciting and white with blue stripes, as Cunninghams were, all American car, Chrysler engine, all that.
Right.
And it was sort of pride of place in my Dinky Toy collection.
Okay.
I walked into the Collier Museum, and there is the real one. And there was only the one. And it's sitting there twice as, well, many times the size of the Dinky Toy. But charismatic cars, definitely.
You couldn't persuade them to let you take the original home to park beside your Dinky?
I don't think I have enough squillions for
that. Worth a try, worth a try.
Please, sir.
Right. Well, of all the cars you've driven, you mentioned there are competition cars, and you said some that you've driven that weren't in competition. What is ultimate car you've ever driven?
Well, I think the Tyrrell was it. I don't need to go any further. 530 horsepower, qualifying type DFV on sticky tires. It was just awesome. And nothing really has come close to it. Ooh. Certainly for sheer fear, although I've driven one or two more dangerous cars.
Right, okay.
Nothing quite as satisfying as that.
Well, now, define a more dangerous car.
There was a car, and it raced at Kirkeston a little bit, but its owner, a very nice man from Hollywood, eventually got rid of it and got something a great deal more sanitary and quite a bit faster as well. It's a Ginetta G4 with a Millington engine in it.
A G4 with a Millington?
Yeah. And,
right.
It was just the most unmanageable beast that, when you got into the seat and strapped in, excuse me, you could see it deciding, I'm going to try and kill you in the next mile and a half. Extremely unpredictable. And everybody, I thought it was just me, but Mike Johnson, who knows a lot about setting up cars, did about 2 laps in it, came back and said, that is the most dangerous car I've ever sat in. So John now has a Crossy S2000, which is a proper car.
Right, okay. I take it was one of those things you didn't drive. You just sat there and gave it power and it went where it went, wanted to go sort of thing?
Yes, it's reactive rather than proactive. But...
Still a great experience to try all the same.
Well, it certainly, reinforced the meaning of life, which is to get out of cars in one piece where possible.
Oh dear. But you haven't just raced at Kirkeston. You have a fairly good repertoire in your history of places you've been racing and driving, haven't you?
Yeah, more hill climbs than races for the most part, but I've done a few track tests in odd places in the States and around Europe. I've never driven the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which is something I still want to do while I can still move about. Spa was splendid. Road America is one of the best circuits I've ever been on. And it's 4 miles round, and it's like Nürburgring, only there's 10 miles missing.
Okay.
And hill climbs all over Ireland, a few English ones, a few Scottish ones. I like the hills because the older you get, the less concentration one has, and if the run only lasts about 2 minutes, I can manage that. But you know, if it's 10 or 15, I'll go to sleep or start panicking. So hills and sprints are where it's at, really.
Yeah. But I always remember you in a car that I was always fascinated with, which was your Cougar. Tell us a bit about the Cougar.
Well, that was my favourite car of all time. It was a Ralt RT1, which won't mean much to anybody really, I suppose, but it was a Formula 3 car from 1975, which originally had a Ford twin cam in it.
Right.
That particular chassis had finished second at Monaco in the F3 race, won at Monza with an Australian called Larry Perkins driving it.
Yeah.
And then it was bought by a chap called Mike McDowell, who wanted to improve it. So he was a director of Coombs of Guildford. And excuse me, getting very chesty. Who was very good friends with Derek Gardner, who was the Tyrrell designer.
Right.
So they put Coombs and Gardner together to make the word Cougar, and that's what it became.
Mm-hmm.
They had a Cosworth DFV in it for a while, and then it was sold to a chap who didn't have an engine, so he put a Rover V8 in it, and pretty much that's the way it came to me. Excuse me. And it was just the nicest, big, friendly car, and I kept it for 15 years. And it sounded very fierce and looked as though it should be really difficult to drive, but the secret was it was a doddle. It was just the easiest handling car ever. But you always had to look as though we just had a real fight to impress people, really. The driving had little to do with it. The car knew how to do it all on its own.
But you had an awful lot of success in that car too.
We did the Irish Championship and were successful 3 times. But there was a whole bunch of us used to do the country hills then, sort of going to Galway and Dungarvan, and it was just great crack. There were some great people doing it. Jenny Kennedy won the championship as well in a Crossley, which I had owned before.
Yeah.
And it was just a nice time. Nobody took it too seriously out of the car, but they were all trying very hard in it.
Yeah.
And we won 3 championships. Andy Kittle won a couple, and Ronnie Maben won a couple. I think the guys down below were probably wondering whether we'd please go away and let them win their own championship. But now, it has to be said, from the great Simon McKinley, who is one of my heroes of all time, and Rob Dwan and Pat Roach and others, they've raised the bar considerably from our day, and they're going very, very quickly now.
Yes, yes. You mentioned some old names there. There's a lot of people will tell you, I love the old motorsport, old sprints, old hill climbs, because that's what I grew up enjoying. But I came across a video on Facebook there about a month or so ago, and I shared it, and it was an RPM video that had been filmed at a hill climb. I think it was somewhere about Cork or Galway in the mid-80s, and it was yourself and Jenny Kennedy and Ronnie Maben in a Delta. And I think you won. Did you win the Saturday and Ronnie won the Sunday?
No, Ronnie won the Saturday. Ronnie won the Saturday, and I did something rather stupid on the Sunday and only got to the top once. But that was Innishteague. Anybody who's seen the film Circle of Friends, that's where it was filmed. It's a very picturesque place, and the paddock was the square in the village. And there was actually a bit of a story about that, because we were all parked in the square at Innishteague, and we had a wee paddock bike, we Honda Dax, for those in the know.
Yeah.
And took it out of the truck, and there was a big Honda 750 that some chap from the village had parked right beside us, so we put the wee Honda in beside it. And 2 old farmers came by, and one nudged the other. He says, "Look," he says, "that one has a pole."
Oh, comical.
But apart from that, no, the hill climbs were just brilliant social occasions apart from any motorsport. And it was just tragic that Simon McKinley eventually had an accident which, well, it took his life, and it spoiled the whole sport for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Motorsport can be dangerous, and hill climbs possibly more than most.
But I think for a lot of people, that's the attraction. I know personally, I stick to the sprints because some of the hills, I like Carn Castle's one I'd love to do, but I've marshalled so many times, and I think I just stick to the sprints. I haven't got the guts for it, shall we say, would be the polite way of doing it. Those that know me better know I have a better turn of phrase, but couldn't possibly do that for public consumption, you know.
I always think if it's real scenery with solid things like houses, you're better reeling it back a notch.
Well, you know, I have a bit of a forte with combs and stuff, so houses maybe I'm better off staying away.
Aye.
Well, tell me this one here, Richard. What is your favourite event and why?
To do or to watch?
Well, to do as a driver. Well, tell us both, actually, sure.
Aye. To do, since the demise of Phoenix Park, which was just an awesome motor race, and talking about real scenery, I mean, they had wooden Armco there with leaves on it. You know, that was a serious hairy-chested circuit. But for all sorts of sensible reasons, it's no longer run. I think probably the Galway Hills. We had a couple of 2-mile hill climbs, very different in character, one to the other. You did one on Saturday, one on Sunday. One was Corkscrew, the other was Ballyalbin. And certainly in Ballyalbin, there were about 3 places in the 2 miles where you're doing 140 miles an hour plus between large rocks on either side of the road. It was a thrill, and you had to know where you were going. But, you know, it's silly to talk about brilliant scenery, but when you got to the top, the view is fabulous.
So you just raced to the top to see the view?
Yeah, naturally. You know, just in case it went away, you went up as quickly as possible.
Maximise your time up there too.
As far as races to watch, Le Mans is just the holy grail. It's brilliant. 24 hours, 250,000 spectators, 55 of the best sports cars in the world, tactics, atmosphere, it's got it all. I've been 3 times, and I was hoping to go this year, but it would have been happening, I think, last weekend or this weekend.
That sounds right now.
Yeah, but no, super place.
Definitely one to add to the wish list there, is it?
Yeah, I'll never tire of going.
Brilliant. Well, you've sold it to me. I must see if I can coax her indoors here to go to Le Mans for a week. I'll tell her it's really good crack. She would enjoy it, actually, to be honest. We took her to Goodwood and she loved it. Richard, what's your most memorable moment in motorsport?
Oh, that's a good one. Can't say it. Remember, I suppose one of the Galway wins, which just all came together. A class win in Donegal with the Imp, the International, with Fred Gallagher, who went on to rather greater things after he sat with me.
The Donegal Rally?
Yeah.
Well, didn't realise you had a class win in it.
Yeah. That was 1973.
Okay. Well, tell me this then. You've won races racing, you've won sprints, you've won hill climbs, you've won rallies. Is there anything you haven't won an event in, competitively?
Quite a lot, I think. I got third in a stock car race once as well. No, well, I've never done an auto test.
Right.
Never, ever. And there's a good reason for that. Because every time I've tried a handbrake turn, I had to get out and look around to see which way I was pointing, and I go, oh, that's not really part of it all.
Okay. I like it. Oh dear. So you've quite successful in a lot of different disciplines and stuff.
Yeah, I've done gazillions of events and have been lucky enough to win some when the people who should have beaten me weren't there.
You did Lurgan Park as well on something kinky, didn't you?
Well, I sat with Michael Sundstrom in the T16 Peugeot.
Oh, you jammy saw it. Bet you went a wee bit quicker than Betsy.
It was quicker than just about everything. The one big memory I have of that, apart from being scared witless on the stages, was when we went out in the morning to check the boost settings. We went into a supermarket car park, which Michael thought would be the right place to do it. Down to the end, there weren't very many people in the car park at the time. And, sort of primed it all, lit it up, and a lady with 2 shopping bags managed 0 to 60 in about half a second to reach our car before we reached her.
You're making me laugh.
I think he did it for madness.
You're making me laugh, and I'm holding the camera here that's recording this, and I'm sure it's flicking up and down like it's on the sea with me laughing. But you did it a couple of times, didn't you?
Did a couple of times. I did once with John Lyons, where we came close to winning in the Opel Kadett. Only the wick in the engine went out about half a mile from the finish of the last stage.
On the way.
And nobody was very pleased then. And I did it with Sundstrom and with John Price of the Renault 5 Turbo, which probably needed wipers on the side windows. That was the sidewaysest machine in the world, I think. Apart from Kenny McKinstry's Volvo Turbo, which I rallycrossed at Duff's Corner once.
A Volvo Turbo?
Volvo 240 Turbo. It's a car that Kenny had built to rally, but it ended up being rallycross. And that was an absolute hoot. But I don't think we were very quick, but we were certainly, what we say, committed, or should have been.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, but you seem to have certainly got a run through Lurgan Park and some classy motors.
Yeah, it's. I must say that co-driving is something I'm not so keen to do now. I mean, I did a year with Ron Neely in the Mini, a lightweight Mini, and the Group 1 Mini, which we took to the Madeira Rally. Now, there's a novel to be written about all of that.
Is there any of it that's repeatable here tonight?
Probably not.
Okay.
But it took a fortnight. And how can you make it last that long? No, it was a 48-hour rally, but the organisers at that point in the late 70s seemed to have all the money in the world, and they shipped 3 cars out from Ireland. All we had to do was put them on a boat in Belfast, and eventually they ended up in Funchal about 2 months later. And then we flew out and joined the cars, did the rally, gave them back to somebody who put them on the boat, and we got them back. It took half a year of the car's life, but definitely different. And so, no, I'll not go into any more of it, but it was memorable.
No, we'll leave it at that then. Well, tell me this, Richard. I think you've possibly answered this one already, but who was your motorsport idol and why?
Several. Simon McKinley for one. It was just his car control. Anybody who's seen the YouTube videos of the White Escort, or him driving a Formula 2 car like an Escort, which was even more impressive because you're not supposed to be able to do that. And he is very much missed. On the local side, I admire a great many people. Shay Lawless, that we used to compete against in the Southern Hills, absolute gentleman with a Chevron with a Rover when we had our Cougar with a Rover. So it was a good even Stevens thing. Globally, Sterling Moss, simply for being Sterling Moss, and Jim Clark for being Jim Clark, most stylish Grand Prix driver ever. And there's none of the modern lot come anywhere close to either of those two, in my view.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you.
This is an old git speaking it, and a lot of younger people will have very definite ideas. I was never that keen on Michael Schumacher. Sorry what happened to him, but he had what appears to be the essential ruthlessness that you need these days. And similarly, Senna, who would, if he couldn't drive around you, would have driven over you. And that's...
Senna actually was on the TV last week. I'm not sure if you saw or not. It was a great programme on 2 Sunday nights ago about Mondello. The Golden Years or something it was called. I can't remember. On Monday night it was on. And they show a good bit of Senna with the race when he was here in the Formula 2000s.
Formula Ford 2000, and when Joey Greenan led for about 5
Yeah,
laps. And
yeah,
I mean, no, very few people have led Senna for 5 laps at any stage. And hats off to Joey. That was just the drive of his life.
yeah.
But
Um,
the Brazilian won in the end.
for those of you that don't know Joey would be fairly famous in Northern Ireland, and he's from Belfast. So Senna came here to race, and a Belfast man led him for 5 laps.
Yep. And, and led him well, too.
You can see it on YouTube. It's well worth a watching. Some great driving there by both drivers. Just incredible. It shows the class of Senna as well. When he got by him, he just brilliant to watch.
Well, anybody who's driven anything quickly is a bit of a hero. Tommy Reed, there's a man.
Very much so.
He first raced, I think, in a Triumph in about 1959, and he only stopped racing there a couple of years ago. He's now well into his 80s, but he was lapping Kyrgyzstan at 100 miles an hour when he was 79.
That's some going.
Yeah, and he used to bring sort of 4 or 5 cars to a race meeting so that he could do all the races possible, because he said it was just boring if he had to sit one out. It's all most of us can do to get one there.
And Tommy always seemed to have a car to fit into near enough every class as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and no, Tommy is a legend, and we really ought to get him to write a book, because he took Irish racing cars. Mick Mooney was his sponsor, and they decided they got an entry for the Japanese Grand Prix, which at that stage wasn't Formula One; it was a sort of Formula 2 affair.
Okay.
And Mick went around all sorts of companies looking for a bit of sponsorship. Nobody was interested. And eventually they put Irish linen on the car, just put Irish linen logos, so there'd be something written on the side of it. Nobody gave them any money, but they went off to Japan, finished the race, did well, and then everyone wanted to know him. That was good. And then he also nearly took part in the only race to nearly happen in Israel.
Okay.
Don't hear of Israeli motor racing very much, mainly because there isn't any really. But they arranged an international Formula 2 race round a trading estate in a place called Ashkelon. The whole Formula 2 circus, whom there were many, sort of Italians, French, Germans, so on, all turned up in this place. And there was a circuit, and there were people. The trouble is the people were on the circuit. There were big drivers were expected to sort of drive between walls of humanity with no barriers or anything. And after a while, everybody said, look, this is nuts, and wouldn't race. But Tommy was there as well. So he's been to bits of motor racing that very few people have been to.
Oh, yeah. Well, you mentioned Irish racing cars and Mick Mooney.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you that were listening last week, I hope I get this right. Mick is the man who gave Alan Jardine a lift to his first lift home.
That's right.
And he started Alan Jardine in his motorsport career. Or well, he gave Alan, he sowed the seeds with Alan that started the career. And look where Alan has gone. We heard that last week. It was fabulous. So it's great to see a tie-in and a link there too between local competitors and stuff.
Yes, and Mick looked after, well, he was Tommy's sponsor. He also mechanicked on the car and always wore a grey suit, even when he was wielding spanners. I mean, he was always properly dressed. None of this sort of shirt and jeans stuff. He was properly attired gentleman at all times. And he also was responsible for a lot of the developments on the motorbike scene as well. The late Brian Stevenson was part of, excuse me, Mick's Keep and Professor Blair in Queens, who did all the work on exhaust systems and so on. So Mick was very influential in Irish motorsport, 2 and 4 wheels.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that, mate.
I'm trying to think of what else was. Yeah, I think other heroes. John Crossley was a hero.
Yes.
But, I mean, a great engineer, a great practical engineer. And Leslie Drysdale, of course, who started out at Crossley's and then went on to start Molyneux. There's a lot of engineering talent in this country.
Yeah. Like even you think back to some of the rally men with, I can see his face, Eamon McAlinden, that used to
Yeah,
build cars and put unusual engines and stuff. Eamon Matheson, another prime example. Robert Majemsi as well. We've mentioned Robert Majemsi in the past. The engineering in this country is fabulous.
Eamon Matheson built that twin-engine Clio that was around some years ago. And I
I
remember
remember it.
doing a track test on that for a magazine, and it was just the sweetest handling small saloon I've ever driven. And it shouldn't have been, it should have been a beast, and it wasn't. It was just really well sorted. And what Eamon's running now, I haven't driven because I'm too wide to get into the cockpit. He'd offer me a run, but I think we know our limitations. But that is also a sweet handling car by all accounts.
Yeah. Well, I remember him, and some of the older people will remember him as well, with his white Sierra Cosworth at the Rallycross.
Aye.
That thing could go. They were. Wasn't very old at that time, but I used to love going to the Rallycross to watch him and it. It had blue tinted windows.
I don't remember the windows, but it had windows on it. But I remember it was that old strange Cosworth V6 that very few of which were built, and it didn't half go.
It didn't half as right. Well, tell me this one here. You mentioned driving things, so I'm going to ask you this one here. You've probably driven all the really exotic stuff, but if you could drive any car anywhere, what would you want to drive, and where would you want to drive it?
Ooh, that's a wide-ranging one, isn't it?
I know, but it gets you talking.
It hasn't worked yet. Oh dear, it's pick one, isn't it? Tell you what I would love to do, and it's got nothing to do with motorsport except in the broadest sense, is drive a Chevy Corvette coast to coast in the States.
Now that would be an experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven a Corvette once. There was actually a press car sent over, a left-hand drive Corvette Roadster.
Right.
Which I was driving through wonderful downtown Newton coming from the radio station one day in this thing, stopped at the traffic lights behind the town hall thinking, I am no end of a guy here, look at me. And two girls walked past and walked across the road, and one said quite loudly to her friend, look at that old idiot, his willy extension. So,
and now the picture jumps and I start laughing.
It fair brings you back. It's a little reality check is useful sometimes.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Any motorsport aspirations? Is there any particular car you would just, love to go at?
Well, I'd love the Cougar back. D-type Jaguar would be nice. I do like Lister Jaguar Nobblies.
Right.
No, BRDC Sports Cars brought a couple of Lister Jags over. It's back in the 90s now. And there's something about the sound of a Lister, the look of a Lister. I've never driven one. I'll probably never get a chance to do more than stand beside one, maybe. But, and it might be very disappointing if I actually did drive one, but I really do fancy one.
Did you tell me at a time that you got to drive my all-time favourite, a 6R4?
I did. The late Norman Kittle let me drive his, and Dennis Bakerstraw actually let me drive his one day as well. Okay. I'm not strong enough to drive one of those.
Right.
Everything is heavy duty. Gear change is heavy duty. I mean, as the original 14-stone weakling, I would have needed both hands to change gear, never mind do anything else in it. But a splendid car. I mean, I've sat with quick people in them, and it's different. Because they make the right noise as well.
I managed to, I think I maybe said this before, I managed to flag a running one at the Festival of Speed in 18. We'll not go into details, but it was awesome. In round the forest stage with a fella beside him. Oh, the noise of it.
You wouldn't fall asleep.
Definitely not. You say you're too light to drive one. I was way too big to be in it. So if we could get one, maybe I could give you some of the excess and we could do it between us, could we?
Right, it's not that I'm light. I'm just, so my arms aren't strong enough.
Well, I was sitting on this thing with my knees up round my neck, but I wouldn't swap a second of it for it. It was awesome. They are a superb car. Well,
so nobody's going to offer him one of those, though, I don't think. What else? What else would I like? Always like Maserati 250Fs as well. 50s Grand Prix car, front engined.
Yeah.
Very pretty. But sure, it's a car, so it's bound to be all right.
Indeed. Well, to turn it to the other side, if you could get a run in a car with anyone, who would you like to drive you and what in?
I think that's already happened. I did get a chance to sit with Ari Vatanen in the Black Escort on a tire test.
You jammy saw it.
And that was just utterly, there is no more than that. That was just fabulous. Now, a modern WRC with somebody like Chris Meek at the helm would be mighty, and I hope he gets back into us soon.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Ari and the Black Escort, it's my era, and I just thought it was great. But it was more than great.
One of those things I'll never forget.
Yeah, even though I must say for the first stage, I decided to watch his feet on the pedals rather than look out the window and be really frightened.
Did you ever see the bit of footage there? It's I think it's Walter Raw driving a Quattro S2 and his feet on the pedals.
Yeah, left foot, everything.
He's like a dancer. It's just awesome to watch. I'm sure Ari was the same.
He was, and Ari was actually not as, I thought it would be all sort of stamp and twitch, but Ari was actually quite smooth.
Right.
And then he was, words fail me. You're being looked at by somebody there.
Yeah, Joanne's come in here to show me, to give me a message, but I can't make it out. Right, I need to bring you back a bit. That's what she's telling me. Right. Well, something slightly different now. Alan Jardine told us last week about the two of you doing a charity, a Guinness World Record charity attempt to drive around every county in Ireland in a day.
Yeah.
Well, what other weird and wacky things have you, I'm wondering is this wise, what other weird and wacky things have you done in a car? Now, only the repeatable ones.
Right. Well, Ivan Martin and I drove around the edge of Ireland to see how far it was.
Right.
Started from the radio station, down the inside leg of the Ards Peninsula, and trying to keep the sea in sight at all times, went all the way around the edge, up around Donegal and down the west. It's 2,755 miles around Ireland.
2,755 miles around Ireland?
Yeah.
Holy smokes, I wouldn't have thought that. And how long did that take you to do?
We did it in a week. We could have done it in slightly less, but we were trying to hit the right places to stay over where the food was good. So some days were longer than others. Ford very kindly lent us an escort, a Sierra Cosworth for that.
Lovely.
Which was just the right tool for the job, as it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we saw scenery that I didn't realize there was in this country. We got around the edge of Donegal and had it all on map, and there were roads that you wouldn't normally take if you're going from A to B, but taking by C, D, and F to get there. And scenery and good crack and great driving roads as well. So that was good. I was fortunate enough to sit on a plane coming back from London and find Terry Harriman beside me. This is back in the late 80s.
Right.
And I said, "What have you been doing?" And he'd just been to Indonesia to do a recce for Camel Trophy. Camel Trophy at that stage was an international Land Rover-based safari, for want of a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
And I sort of made envious noises, and the next thing I knew, he asked me, did I want a Marshall on it, which of course I did. So some months later, we ended up sort of landing in Jakarta and on to Sulawesi, and getting on ever smaller airplanes to get to, can't remember what it was called, Ujung Pandang, that's right. Joined our Land Rover and set off to sort of work out the route that the international competitors would tackle sort of maybe 10 days later.
Right.
Which got to the stage of hacking your way through forest and fording rivers and doing all sorts of stuff like that. It was absolutely brilliant fun. And then marshalling when the event started itself. Camel picked a crew from, I think it was about 19 different countries, Land Rover for the machinery, and then they did special tasks, they called them, which could involve getting up something absolutely impossible, near vertical faces and things, or maintaining an absolutely silly average speed in a totally impossible place. So it was a bit of brain work, quite a lot of practical driving, quite a lot of very bushranger type driving. But we had to do all that first as marshals to make sure it was possible before we sent them off to do it.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely brilliant. And then the following year, we did it up the Amazon in Brazil.
Right.
Which was totally awesome as well.
That does sound brilliant. That sounds like an absolute cracker experience to do.
So I do remember on the recce there were 2 Land Rovers and we were sort of a couple of miles apart, hacking our way through this jungle and hopefully going in the right place. And eventually a message came from the other Land Rover. And it sounded quite terse and we were a bit, concerned that something had happened to them. And
yes.
It's, Rover 1 to Rover 2, come in urgently. And he said, yes, what is it? He said, what's the name of Postman Pat's cat? They'd been having an argument in their Land Rover. What is the answer?
Okay, so it was really relevant to the route then.
Oh, very. And if you're wondering, the answer is Jess.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Am I right in saying you did a bit of Renault 5 racing with Mr. Bean?
No, I wasn't involved. Mr. Bean raced at Kyrgyzstan. That's really where
that was it. That was it.
Although quite a very private man, he didn't really want to be recognised as anything but just another Renault driver.
Right.
But very good driver. Good motoring journalist as well when he feels like it.
Uh-huh.
And I think he's now attached to Aston Martins and Bentleys and things.
Yes, yes. And was it an XK220 Jaguar? No, McLaren F1. McLaren F1.
Yes,
that he's famous for.
Yeah, he had a little whoopsie in that.
Yes. You're bound to have met a lot of other famous people then through motorsport as well.
I guess Mike Hawthorne when I was very small.
Right.
I had his autograph in the TT program, but that got lost in a house move somewhere. I don't think I've got famous friends. We did get sponsorship from Chris Barber, the jazz man, for a while in one of the imps.
Okay.
He was a nice man. It's funny how your mind goes blank when you're asked the question, and then at 2 in the morning, I'll phone you and tell you who I met.
Yep, by all means. But we'll do it on Zoom. We'll record it and we'll put it out later.
You wouldn't want to see me at 2 in the morning, though.
You definitely wouldn't want to see me at 2 in the morning.
The other thing I suppose we did, which was quite good, was the Budweiser Race to America.
Right.
Where I had this idea in the late 80s when Mondial started first. And Leslie Drysdale designed a car to take a Saab turbo engine on behalf of Skip Barber, who had the biggest racing school in the States and always bought Crossleys and Mondials. And he was devising this one-make race series where people would come along and race the cars, but Skip Barber organization would own them all, prepare them all, and just, if you like, rent it either for the year or on a race-by-race basis. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we had somebody from here driving one of these in a big race in the States? And the idea festered for a while. And then I was talking to a friend of mine one day who worked for Gilbey's at that point. and mentioned it to him, and he thought that would work really well for Budweiser, American beer. We're launching it, all that sort of thing. The next thing we had, the Budweiser race to America. So questionnaires were put in a number of pubs and nightclubs and things. People who thought they'd be interested in doing it, as long as they hadn't any previous motor racing experience, fill in the form, send it in, and then we had a series of interviews. First of all, selected, the promising ones. Series of interviews. John Watson was involved in the interviews. Now he helped us a lot. Took a smaller group to the race school, Richard Peacock School at Nuts Corner. 2 days, came out with 2 people, David Allen and Stephen McWilliams. And then they had to do, because neither of them had an international license, they had to do a season of Formula Ford locally in a pair of Crossleys that we acquired. And it was sort of my team with Alan Mabin in tech support and Hammy Blemming, who always looked after my cars, and a couple of other people. It was a good team and good fun. We did all the races, all the Carcassons, a few Mondellos, 1 Knockhill, various adventures, 1 new chassis and 1 of the Crossleys, quite a lot of spare parts. But at the end of it all, both were qualified for international licenses, and then the jury met again and picked David Allen as the one to go to the States. So then we all flew up to Miami, and there was an IndyCar race in the university campus and a Barber Saab race in support.
Okay.
So Davey went out there, he qualified 4th, ran 4th, and eventually finished 9th after a whoopsie, which was pretty good going because most of the people around him in that race went on to have careers in IndyCar and long-distance sports car and, top-end American racing.
Yeah.
And we hoped it would go on for year on year, but sadly the budget didn't say everything was changed budget-wise, and Bud went on to something else, so it was a one-off. It was the best fun. And that was the same year as doing one of the Camel Trophies. It's hard to realize how I had time to do any work at all.
I was just going to say, were you ever at home at all?
Sometimes. Well, I was living on my own at the time, so there wasn't any real need to come home for anybody.
But still a brilliant experience, those 2 different things, especially in the 1 year.
Yeah, well, it was the Budweiser thing was great, and I've made good friends out there that I'm still friends with, and that's really the business.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Well, to come a wee bit more modern and a wee bit more topical, Richard, I'm just moving my adapter here that I'm using to prop my phone up on. As we progress out of the COVID pandemic, Motorsport UK have introduced many new changes to prevent the spread of COVID. So as competitors, what changes are we likely to see at events going forward? This is just to give people a heads up so it doesn't all hit them like a wet fish in the bait. Yeah,
well, we're still sort of digesting the recommendations. I know every event is going to have a COVID-19 officer who will be monitoring everyone's adherence to the MS UK guidelines. There'll be no, as far as I'm aware, no physical scrutineering of cars anymore. Right. Scrutineers will look at them, but you'll have to fill in a self-declaration form, a pre-event declaration, which will take the place of sign-on and also your scrutiny sheet. And that, if you enter an event on time, and people are going to have to enter on time now because entries are going to be online only. Regular
Can you just repeat that, please?
Sorry?
Can you just repeat that line, please? Because historically, our competitors aren't great at that last bit.
Well, you know all about Rally Score and entries via Rally Score, and that's going to be the only way to do it. Yeah. Nobody actually wants to handle cash. I know it's nice, but that's the best way of transmitting COVID short of sneezing in somebody's face. So you don't want to ask anyone in the office to be there and handle cash. Therefore, we can do it online. Yeah. When the office knows that you have entered, the race office will send you a pre-event declaration form, which you have to fill in. It's tiresome to fill in forms, but this is a major emergency. This is a way around it. Now, it asks a number of questions which a scrutineer might not ask you. Things like the date labels on your suit and boots and hands device and all the rest, whether your fire extinguisher is full, when was it last serviced, things that we all should know but few of us ever bother with. In a normal run of thing. But that will be handed into the scrutineers who will then eyeball your car from a distance. But basically, the scrutineer isn't there to catch the fact that there's a wheel falling off. That's down to the entrant stroke driver now.
Right.
And that situation will pertain, I think, until whatever this is goes away. You may see marshals looking like extras from Doctor Who. You may, face mask will be the thing. And in the paddock, we're on a group of 10 rule at the moment.
Right.
So clumps of 10 people in reasonable proximity will be tolerated. Any bigger than that, and a COVID officer will come and sort of chase any extras away. It's a matter of being responsible.
Yeah.
And I know we're not famous for that, but I think in this instance, it's a good idea. Yes, that's broadly speaking it. The calendar is going to change. I mean, it's changed already, and I think there's more change to come in the calendar. At the moment, it is our hope that we can start racing at Kyrgyzstan on the 25th of July, but it's by no means certain because another spike could come. Permission to return to competition might not come.
Yeah.
But we have to be ready in case it does, so that we can swing into action as soon as that happens. The first sprint will be again at Kyrgyzstan on August the 1st. It should have been a British Championship 2-day event, but the British Championship's now been canned, so it will now, fingers crossed, be a Northern Ireland Championship, a Saturday-only event.
Okay.
And further down the line, some events are not happening, although we thought they were, and maybe one or two will pop up that we knew nothing about. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Just as Richard has said, these changes have been imposed on us by Motorsport UK. It's not us been telling us what's to happen. So simple things like filling in forms as soon as they become available, booking entries early, filling your paperwork in. Guys and girls, it's over to you. If you don't do it, you'll knock it out. That's a polite way of putting it, Richard, really, isn't it?
It's hard not to sound preachy, but there are people from further up the tree telling us what we can and can't do. We're only really relaying the message, and these are the people who issue your license or the people who enforce our laws locally. So not to be messed with.
No. It's a very fluid situation. We'll have to make the best of it while we have it. It's just do your best, and we'll hopefully still get our fun.
It's still the best sport in the world, and it would be a shame if it disappeared. And I think we've got to do it, the official way if we want it to continue.
Yeah, and Richard and I have been discussing during the week a couple of times. There is a lot of work going on in the background by Richard and all at the 500 Club and all in Speed Committee, etc. as well, to get things running. So people, just bear with us, and if we ask you to do something, or fill a form in, or sign a sheet, or email it in, it's for a reason. Don't fall out. It's not our doing. We're doing what we're told. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Yeah, nobody's going to ask you to do something that actually doesn't have to be done.
Yeah. It's very fluid. That's all we can say about it. But to move across, Richard, you'll be glad to know that your grilling is nearly over.
Am I well done?
I let you decide on that one. I let you decide. So this is the most important question of the interview, Richard.
Right.
And it's one that you'll have to think about seriously. Richard, who would you like to see interviewed for this?
This is where we get the fickle finger of fate out and whirl around, isn't it? Thought long and hard about this. I know you've got some people on your list, and one of them I was going to pick, but you've got there ahead of me. I would like to hear Gary Milligan.
Gary Milligan, right.
Gary has been a supporter of sprinting, I think, nearly since sprinting was invented.
Yes.
He's also, in addition to being deeply involved with the Ulster Rally, deeply involved with the Motor Club, a great fund of knowledge on the history side, a very good driver, and the quiet man who would never boast about anything. So it's up to you to do the dental extraction and get some information out of it.
For those of you that don't know, Gary did his 500th competition motorsport event at Croft Hill Climb in 2018, I believe it was. And that was his 500th event, because he parked behind me in the paddock and I asked him what the 500 was for in his windscreen, and he says, it's my 500th event. I says, you need to do something. No, he says, I want that kept quiet. And me being me, everybody knows me with a big mouth, had it announced at the driver's briefing and the prize giving, and organised that there was an interview done for him, so he got a bit of press coverage for that. So people don't know that Gary has done so much, and as Richard says, he's everywhere. He's also my biggest rival, so I don't know if I could get an unbiased conversation with him or not. Richard, what do you think?
I think I should do this and ask him what he thinks of you.
No, that wouldn't be the point of it. No, when he took you, Gary that would be good crack. No, I'll give Gary a call. I know his daughter watches these and his brother watches these. Don't think Gary's on Facebook to watch them himself. But I sent him a wee tip and a wee link to the Hill Climb Championship YouTube page. I'm telling him to fast forward to about an hour and 10 minutes in, and he might hear somebody's name that he knows.
Yeah.
So Gary, I'm coming for you, not only on the track, but I'm coming with a microphone this time.
Hi. So there we are.
There we are indeed. Richard, I'm going to thank you, first of all, from myself and on behalf of everybody, for being an absolutely great sport and doing this tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to listen to you. It's been superb, really enjoyable. So thank you very much.
Well, I hope it hasn't been too boring. Sorry about the sort of coughing and hacking. It's been a long day. Yeah, it's just hard when going back. I mean, I did my first race 54 years ago. That's not good.
That's a very good career then.
Well, you know, we've had to attain pretty much the same level of success all the way through, and I think I was unplaced the first race. So there you go. Yeah, it's about enjoying it, not winning.
Yeah. You mentioned slightly there, somebody you were going to mention, but I'd already beaten you to it. You're not the only one that suggested him. I spoke on Tuesday evening to Jerry McGarity, and Jerry has agreed to do an interview with us next week.
Excellent.
Now, I had initially set up to do this on Friday evening, but my circumstances have changed a bit. So I'm going to try and bring it forward to Thursday evening at 8:30. So I'll put a final date and time up publicly on the page once I get it confirmed. But I know from talking to Jerry, he was mad keen to do it, couldn't wait. I think if he could have done it there and then, he would have done it. So put it as a date. I will confirm it. But next Thursday evening, which will be, what's that, the 18th?
This is the 18th.
No, sorry, then it'll be the 25th.
Sounds right.
Well, a time machine here. Next Thursday evening, which will be the 25th of June, all being well, 8:30 again, will be Jerry McGarity. So that is one I am looking forward to. And we're going to see if we can figure out if he'll tell us a secret to pedaling a mini so fast. Don't think he will, but we'll ask him and see what he says. So, as I say, I just want to thank you again, Richard, on behalf of everybody here, and remind us all next Thursday night, to be confirmed, he has agreed to do it. Next Thursday night, 8:30, Jerry McGarity on the Facebook page live for another chat stroke interview as a carry on from this. You've left him big shoes to fill, Richard.
Not quite not that big.
No, Richard, before I buy out here, I'm just going to thank you again so very much for agreeing to do this. It's been great crack. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. I know the viewing figures have been up as well, and there's been a lot of comments coming through. Apologies to everybody for a slight technical hitch so far in. The joys of technology, Apple technology, I don't know what happened, it just died. It was fully charged before anybody says anything. Hence the picture and all shouldn't be as good as normal. The iPad's moving. Every time Richard made me laugh, the iPad should, or the phone should I say, so apologies on the wavy sign. Everybody, thank you very much for watching. Richard, thank you very much for agreeing to participate. If you just bear with me here, Richard, I have a procedure to go through to make sure I don't lose any of this, so just bear with me, please, 2 seconds. So, everybody watching on Facebook Live, you're getting a nice view of the our front room there. I'm going to finish this and post it, so just bear with me. Finish. Share. That's it up on Facebook. I'm now going to stop the live recording on Zoom. The live recording on Zoom will appear on YouTube shortly.